Having a female mayor of a city is commonplace in the U.S. But what does it take to be mayor of a city? Find out on Talking with Henrietta, coming up next. Hi, I'm Henrietta. Welcome to the show. According to the latest census data, as of March 2018, there were nearly 20,000 municipalities in the U.S. These include both towns and cities. Many of these municipalities have a council-led form of government with a mayor as the leader. But what does it take to be the mayor of a city or town? On this show, I'll talk with the mayor of East Palo Alto, Lisa Gauthier. Mayor Gauthier was first elected to her first four-year term on East Palo Alto's five-member council in 2012. She was re-elected to the council in 2016. Her current four-year term will expire in November 2020. Welcome, Mayor Gauthier. It's a delight to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Of course.
Yes.
Now, you grew up in Southern California, but you were raised in East Palo Alto.
So yes, I was born in Inglewood, but arrived in East Palo Alto when I was 2. So I lived in East Palo Alto for a very long time. So I always say that I am a product of the East Palo Alto community.
And you went to the regular city schools?
Yes, Runnymede, Brentwood, I think Castaño. We were able to walk to school, and I'm a product of the Ravenswood School District.
And I'm sure you were reading by the time you were in the 3rd grade.
You know, my mother was did some work at the school district, so we grew up in a household where we couldn't say we were bored because she said a book could take us anywhere we wanted to go. So we were encouraged to read all the time. So yes.
And I'm sure you've seen many changes since you came at 2 to now.
Yes. Yes, the community has changed a great deal. When we first moved to East Palo Alto, we lived on Bay Road, and that house is no longer there. There's an apartment complex in the space where our original house was, but the community has changed a great deal. University didn't go to Dumbarton Ridge when we first lived in East Palo Alto. It stopped short, so you would have to go to Willow Road to get to the other side of the bay.
It simply stopped.
There was just a stop. And so university didn't continue on originally.
Just think of all of the traffic that the city wouldn't have now, huh?
Yes. And the Dumbarton Bridge was different at that time as well. I remember it was a drawbridge, so you would have to stop to get across the bridge. Times were much different then.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Now, when you were growing up, did you think of representing the city at any point? Was that a dream or goal?
It was not a goal of mine to represent the city. I don't even think that I thought of representing the city. Growing up, I thought that maybe I wanted to go into medicine, maybe I wanted to be a nurse or something of that nature. And this being an elected official was not my desire even in 2011. I had been asked to run for office a couple of times, and I just figured I was like, I don't want to be a politician. It had a negative feel to me, and I didn't want to do it. And my daughter, who was at Spelman at the time, overheard one of the requests, and she said to me, "Mom, if you're not sitting at the table making decisions, someone else will be making decisions for you. But I trust your decision making. You can do it, and I believe in you." So it became a family affair, and we ran for an office together. So it was a great experience.
Was this an older daughter, oldest daughter?
This
How many children?
This is my youngest daughter, who it is actually her dream to be an elected official. So she encouraged her mom. I tell her I'm living her dream right now. But at some point I do expect that she will take up this mantle and run for herself.
Now, you said at the time in 2011, the two of you were running together?
So she encouraged me, and early on, I had never been an elected official before. I didn't know what it was like. So we had a really grassroots effort as a family. So we created my literature and my website, and we walked and did a lot of things on our own. So it was really, when I say we, collectively the family worked to get me elected.
And what's the family?
So I have 3 young adult children who helped me out a great deal. So I have my son, Huey, we call him Trey. I have a daughter, Ashley, and the youngest daughter's name is Brittany.
And they've been very influential for you, haven't they?
They really have.
Because you recently went back to school.
I did. I am proud to say that after a few years, I decided to go back to school to earn my bachelor's degree. As a single mother of 3 young adults, I had to take into consideration what their future would be like. So when you think about limited education dollars, I knew that I had to give them the best opportunity that they could have. So I took my money and made sure that they could go to school. My son figured that school wasn't for everybody, and I'm really happy that he thought that way. He didn't waste my money on school since it wasn't something he wanted to do at the time. My middle daughter graduated from Arizona State. My youngest daughter, Brittany, graduated from Spelman in Atlanta, and she got a master's degree from USC. I had earned 2 AA.
And you didn't pay for her to get there?
I helped you. I'm paying for her loans now. That's why I couldn't pay for. I was trying to figure out how I was going to pay for my own.
But you didn't pay for her to get in. I mean, none of that with your connections, paying a sports coach? Or?
No, and I don't even think that existed. I paid with financially. We'll be paying student loans for some time now. But even when they were in school, I knew that my mother taught us early that an education is the way to go. It's what helps you to achieve your dreams. So I had managed to earn 2 AA degrees and found myself blocked. And I was looking for an opportunity to go to school and trying to figure out which program would work for me. And I couldn't take on any more student loan debt. And this company, Study.com, that manages a program called the Working Scholars Program, presented at a city council meeting where they brought this opportunity for a no cost to the student bachelor's degree.
I remember their presentation.
Yes.
Yes.
I remember sitting there on the dais saying, is this real? Who gives a free degree?
Yes.
And could I do it?
Yes.
And I'm so glad that I took the opportunity. I had to compete to get into a spot. I made it into one of the 25 slots, and I enjoy education. So I think I was going through really quickly or something. I was called to the office for a meeting, and at the end of that meeting, it felt like an interview. And I left going, why did that feel like an interview? And they had, after that meeting, they had created a position for me within the organization, and that's where I work now. I work for Study.com in their Working Scholars Program as the Government Affairs Manager.
Now, was that before you went to school there, or
it was
after?
It was after. They wanted to know how I was managing to go through all these courses so quickly.
Yes, tell us how you did that.
It's about scheduling. So when you go to school online, you have to be dedicated and you have to block out time. But not only that, the Working Scholars Program is a program that's really designed with the working adult in mind, meaning that unlike the traditional college experience, college comes to you. So you can take classes on a phone, your laptop, or a tablet. So you're not required to go to a campus. So after a city council meeting, when you can't go to sleep because you've been up, and trying to figure out what happened in the meeting, I would take classes. Or if I was on a flight for 5 hours, I would take classes. Or the way that the program is put together, it really meets the student the way they learn. So if you learn best by watching a video, you can watch a video. Or if you're an audio learner, you can listen to the program. Or if you're better by just reading the transcript, you read the transcript, you take a 5-question quiz. You have to get 80% to show that you have competency on what you just learned before moving on to the next program. So the program was really geared with the working adult in mind.
And how long did it last?
It took me 18 months to earn my degree, which is an amazing thing when you think about somebody who's sitting in the role of a mayor of a city, the government affairs manager at an organization. and still having the ability to find
So
time
you
to
mean
go to
you
school.
had that much free time on your hands?
I don't know what free time felt like. There were weekends where I would tell my children that I just couldn't do things or I couldn't watch that show, and it was a sacrifice to get to where I needed to go. And the funny thing, even when I think about my son who didn't want to go to school, while I was going to school towards the end of my education before I earned my degree, he would walk by my room if you were at my house and say, "Shouldn't you be doing homework?" I was like, so he encouraged me, and in the end, he decided that he wanted to go back to school as well. So he will be working towards his degree. So
terrific. Yes. Now, you have your bachelor's degree. What did you get it in? Business
Administration with a focus on general management.
And how can you use that? Or can you use it?
You know, a business administration degree is really about managing an organization. So I can take that in a lot of different directions. But even on the job now, you know, I find opportunities to really utilize my degree. As soon as I had gotten my degree, well, before I got my degree, I was in a meeting and we were talking about media, and I can't remember what it was. But I had just taken a course in marketing, and it had to do with media. And I was able to talk about the eyeballs and all the things that really pertain to media. So it's like, I'm putting this education to use right away.
That's amazing.
Yes.
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 Education that's not going to waste, huh?
And it didn't cost me anything.
So
no student debt.
Before we get into how they can afford to do that, let's talk about your path to the city council.
Sure.
We saw, or at least you told us, that your daughter was influential in your running for the city council. Has it been what you expected?
I think it's been, I didn't know what to expect at first, but I knew that I had some business experience, and I knew I wanted to be a part of the solution. I found myself complaining about things. And it's not enough to just sit and complain. Even when I deal with people today, I want them to help me to arrive at a solution. Just don't bring a problem and leave it for me. So being in a leadership role in the community that I grew up in has been pretty amazing, and I'm enjoying it. I don't sleep a lot, but because I care. I do care about the community and the constituents who are there, and about the city just in general.
So is it different serving on the city council and being the mayor of a city?
Yes. When you're sitting in the seat of mayor, you're setting the direction. You help to, with the vice mayor, decide the agenda for the meetings itself. This year has been busier than the first year as mayor because I've been in the media more. There have been a lot of good things, but for good reasons. You know, press conferences and things like that. There's been a lot of media requests for this year. So. And I get a lot of phone calls. I had a phone call just recently of somebody was not happy that an RV was parked on their street. And, you know, people want solutions. They want you to help them figure out their problems, and that's part of our job.
So this is your second term.
Second term.
You started on the council in 2012. So let's talk about the problems. You wanted to be a part of the solution.
Sure.
And have there been any solutions in your first 4 years that you could think about?
You know, I think we're getting there. You know, running, we know we wanted to, when I ran for office, some of the things that were important to me and continue to be important is, would be the communication. We need to do a better job of communicating as a city and an organization with the community, because that's where the trust comes in, and people just feel like they don't know enough about the community. When you think about East Palo Alto, it used to be an affordable city, and it's changed so much. And we continue to fight for people who made East Palo Alto home when nobody else wanted to live in East Palo Alto. We want them to continue to stay in East Palo Alto. So finding opportunities where housing is going to be affordable for those individuals who call East Palo Alto home and love it. I didn't know that we would have this much traffic problems. Traffic is a huge issue within our community. But then if you step back and you think about the traffic issues and the traffic problems that we're having, it's because the economy is doing really well. So it's almost a trade-off with the traffic. But we have to find a solution to the cut-through traffic within our community.
The economy is doing very well, but is it doing very well for the people who live in East Palo Alto?
No, I would have to say that we are not benefiting from the economy that surrounds us. And so we have to be deliberate in how do we build and help the residents of East Palo Alto qualify and become eligible for those jobs that are surrounding us, like not just the service worker jobs, but those jobs that are in tech, that pay the money that allows people to stay and buy in the community. So that's going to be part of the focus of the council as well, helping with education and making sure we're building programs that allow residents to stay.
Building what kind of programs?
You know, so if you think about tech programs or trainings, or just even similar to the program that I went through, supporting a working scholars program where you can earn a bachelor's degree. You think about organizations like Street Code, who are actually training people in the coding field. Different programs like that, even our career center, making sure that, you know, this career center is going to be robust enough where they are actually making a difference in helping individuals who want to upskill their skills and do a better job. Or if you think about Job Train and the things that they're doing, there are opportunities and partnerships that we can work with to allow people to stay home.
To stay home?
I call it stay home. Stay home, stay in East Palo Alto, get a degree and stay where they want to live.
Is it happening? For example, you mentioned Job Train, you mentioned Street Code, you mentioned the Working Scholars Program. Those are all pieces.
Yes.
But are they enough? Are they really making a dent, do you think?
You know, I can't give up hope. So I always have to say that we have to keep trying things. And do we have a whole solution in place? I won't say that we have the full answer, but we keep looking for the solution, and we keep trying to add things that are going to make a difference. There are people who are gaining, right now there are 30 people in East Palo Alto who are earning a bachelor's degree.
What, through the Working
Scholars Program. And the program is self-paced, so based on how fast these individuals go, they can earn a degree in 2 years or so. So I think some people are closer than that in the city of East Palo Alto. When you think about Job Train and their programming, my son and I had attended a data and business analytics course that Kenyatta and Job Train had put together, and it was I want to say a 12-week program. But if you can walk away with a certificate that allowed you to gain an entry-level job, you're making a difference right away within 6 to 12 weeks or 16 weeks. Those are the programs that are robust enough to make a difference, because when we looked at the business and data analytics entry point, that's a $90,000 a year job. So for one person, that can indeed make a difference for a family.
Sure,
yes.
Because I was thinking you can get that job, but will it be enough? I mean, will it pay enough?
And that's important. Where are the jobs of the future? Where are the jobs? What are the jobs that we're looking at that are going to pay that wage? And I think data analytics will do that. And so that's where we have to keep thinking about where the job's going to come from.
And also, when you talk about employment, there are a lot of people walking around with degrees that still can't get jobs.
Which is unfortunate, and I don't understand that, especially in this economy where we're talking about there are more jobs and there are qualified workers, so why is it that individuals cannot utilize their degrees? And then at some point, how do we continue to upskill ourselves? You know, I sit in a position like right at this time, did I actually need to go back and get my degree? Probably not. I could have waited. But I think we have to reinvent ourselves and always try to figure out.
You could have waited, but would you have missed out on that employment opportunity?
I would have missed out on that employment opportunity. But even with the data analytics course, I want to learn and I want to add things to my resume. So I'm hoping that others will think the same way.
We'll pick that up,
Yes.
that learning is a lifetime experience. And so you're always improving yourself, gaining new knowledge, trying to find ways to use it.
Yes.
And being the mayor now, you've had an opportunity to go off to various conferences. like the U.S. Conference of Mayors, where I read that there were 1,400 mayors in the conference, and they represent cities over 30,000 in population, and East Palo Alto just does make that make that mark.
Yes.
And so, what was it like? You've attended that conference.
Yeah, so I attended the conference in 2015. It was in San Francisco, and Mayor Ed Lee was still in office then. And it's and then just recently this year, the conference was in Honolulu. And it's always good to have mayors come together to talk about issues. A lot of our issues that are happening in cities are happening all over. So the U.S. Conference of Mayors approaches the issues with mayors like, why recreate the wheel when you can sit at the table with somebody who's already come with a solution and just copy what they've done to help your city. So it's really an opportunity for mayors to come together and think about the cities and think about the issues that we have regionally and how we're going to fix it.
Can you think of anything concrete?
Yes. So during this U.S. Conference of Mayors, I remember meeting the mayor of Miami, and I introduced myself and told him the city that I was from, and he just said, "Oh my goodness, I know East Palo Alto." He goes, "We took your Fit Zone program that East Palo Alto implemented. We're doing it in Miami. It's making a difference in our parks, and it's reducing the crime in our parks."
Talk about Fit Zone.
So Fit Zone is a program that the police department initiated with some of our nonprofits that reactivated the parks. So they would have an activity or an event in a different park in the community every day. So it was moving around, reactivating the parks. The police would be in the park. They would be riding the bikes with the youth, playing volleyball with the youth. So there was a program that allowed community policing, and it allowed the residents of East Palo Alto an opportunity to enjoy the outdoors.
Is it still going on?
It is not going on anymore unless some of the nonprofits may be working in the park a little bit more, but it was a great
I'm
program.
wondering, how did the mayor of Miami know about East Palo Alto's Fit Zone program?
So those are some of the regional approaches when you deal with mayors across this country. You know, they hear good things, and it's when Chief Ron Davis left the city of East Palo Alto, he did go and work for the COPS program in Washington, D.C. Now, did they do a white paper or something? I don't know, but I was impressed to know that here's this mayor on the other side of our country that knows about this little town in California and was eager to tell everybody. So when I would see him during the conference, he would say, "I know East Palo Alto, and I took this from East Palo Alto, and this is helping."
Well, that's interesting, given East Palo Alto's past reputation, how many are saying the city is a leader. Do you feel the city's a leader?
You know, I do feel like we're in a position where we are leading in some areas. You know, things have changed. We're not the East Palo Alto that some people want to keep us in.
Depicted as.
It is a different time, and when you think about even Fit Zone being one thing, and I know we've been celebrating some of the grants that we've received, and we were leaderships in sustainability, and we improved our road structure, and we received an award for that.
Yes, for the most paved roads in 1 year.
Yes.
Yes.
I will be receiving an award on behalf of the city at the council, the California League of Cities on sustainability in October. So the city is doing some...
talk about that, sustainability.
Yes.
What is East Palo Alto sustaining?
So the green streets, the infrastructure, some of the great things that are happening in East Palo Alto. We're leading the charge. East Palo Alto is doing a lot of great work, and we owe that to our staff members. We have, when you think about a city, we have a limited staff within the city, but they're doing a lot of great work.
Less than 100.
Less than 100.
And I think Palo Alto has about 1,000.
It doesn't seem fair, but so I always tell our staff members we really appreciate the work that they do because we have some great staff members.
Now, talking about staff, I know there is a new city manager.
Yes.
In terms of staff turnover, the city has it had a high turnover rate?
It has had a turnover rate even before our new city manager was on board. You know, unfortunately, our revenues are not where they could be to really match the salaries for all the cities when we think about compensation. So some people leave for those reasons. And when there's a change in management, there are times where some people will leave during that change of management. But we've had some dedicated employees that have been in the community for years.
I know Kamal.
Kamal
right?
has been there for a very long time.
Yes.
And we appreciate his work. And I'm just grateful. When I think about Kamal, I can remember we had in my neighborhood, a Mylar balloon hit a power pole and took the power out of the community in my area. And I complained about it. I told somebody the power's out. And I was sitting in my house and I could hear Kamal's voice on my street. And it was a weekend. He stopped what he was doing to come to East Palo Alto, to not just make sure that I was okay, but to make sure that East Palo Alto was okay. And he was spending time with his family. That says a lot about somebody who will stop what they're doing with their family to make sure the city's okay.
Sure, and that's a PG&E problem,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yes.
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 It's probably not very much city staff could have done.
But it had gotten to the point where the poles were arcing, so the fire was coming out of so they had to block off because they were saying had the line actually dropped, it could have really caused a lot of damage. So just some of the staff came out to block off like streets and make sure that they maintained that everybody was safe.
I would think the police would have been doing that, right?
The police were around as well, but some of our the public works team, they did a great job. They were on standby with the fire department and the police department.
Now, it has been said in the past that the city of East Palo Alto has been the training ground for a lot of staff members who go off to other places. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Is there truth in that?
You know, I could say there is some truth in that, or we've had some turnover for some of the younger staff members who have received some training and moved on. But in this industry right now where people are, you know, we want to do a better job and not poach from each other, but cities that can pay more money are more attractive to somebody who's starting a family and is trying to build their life. So we understand, we don't like it, but there are times where, like, there are people who've moved out of the country, so they had to leave the city, or maybe they moved to another area, or if a city can pay you 16% more, would you not leave too? So you would probably want to stay, but again, if you have a family, you're trying to take care of your family as well.
And it also depends on the circumstances.
It does. It varies. I've worked in organizations before where I may not have made as much money, but I respected my management and I was learning and felt like I was being invested in, they were investing in me and helping me to grow, so I would stay. So,
well, I think one way the city could look at it is, if it's any consolation, if the city is a training ground for staff, the city must be doing a very good job with the training.
I like the way you think. I like the way you think. I'm going to take that. Can I take that?
And maybe it can attract more people because of the training.
But when you think about so recruiting costs a certain amount of money, right? And when somebody walks out the door with institutional knowledge, how do you put a value on that institutional knowledge that walks out the door? So we really want to do what we can to keep those valuable people and staff members in the community, in the city, working for us.
Now, when you talk about pay, what about the revenues? Of course, with the development of Ravenswood 101, with the Four Seasons, with IKEA, the city revenues have been increasing, or were they?
The city revenues were increasing, you know, but unfortunately, as you think about the economy and what's going on with our retail center, you know, retail is dropping a little bit, so we have to be mindful that we have to generate and bring additional revenue into the city, because if we don't, at some point, we will be looking at a deficit.
And how do you bring in additional revenue?
When we're thinking about the development, what does new development look like, and the development that we accept.
Office development?
Office development, and there's a lot of pressure right now on East Palo Alto. It feels like everybody wants to develop a portion of East Palo Alto, but being smart in identifying the development that comes in, and for that development that it adds to the revenue stream to help us to provide the services that residents expect.
Now, development in and of itself, while it can be a positive thing, it can also bring some negative consequences.
Right.
For example, the cost of living increases, right, for those living within the city.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point several years ago, Facebook was even paying its employees up to $10,000 or more just to move closer.
Right. And we were so angry with that. And for whatever reason, they didn't own up to the fact that they didn't recognize how that impacted our community. Because if you say, I'm going to pay my employees $10,000 bonus to live within 10 miles of the campus, you have to think about what your impact is going to have on the surrounding areas.
Why?
Because you're impacting, and you have individuals who are pushing others out of the community.
Why would they care? I mean, as long as they're making money and they're profitable and their employees can get to work much faster, what do they care about the impact?
They should care about the social impact, because they're a company that says that they care about the social impact of not only their product, but what they're doing. And if they're going to live by that model of having social impact and doing goodwill, they should think about how it impacts a community. I would want them to think about how it impacts a community. And, as an organization that lives close, they can do a much better job by helping to train and employ residents from the city, because the residents are already in East Palo Alto. So if you can get a job that is closer, you are almost killing two birds with one stone. So,
have you found that to be the case, that willingness to do that with other companies that are coming in, other companies with plans to come in?
So we haven't gotten that far on the development side, but we need to be, as a council, we need to be deliberate in how we plan for the future. So we know that we have a first source hiring.
I was just about to mention that.
We have a first source hiring ordinance that needs to be updated.
Now talk about the ordinance.
So the first source first source hiring ordinance indicates that an organization that's working in East Palo Alto should hire a percentage of their employees should come from our community. And I know that right now we need to do a better job. We need to update that ordinance to ensure that individuals who live in the community have opportunities for the roles and the jobs that are coming to the community.
Now, that brings into the conversation just the idea of community benefits coming from corporations. Those companies that want to come in, is that something under discussion? Like making sure that these companies aren't just moving into the city for their own profit advantage, but that they're also providing some benefits. So what does that discussion involve? Sure.
So we will have a broader conversation about what community benefits look like for upcoming development. But yet we want to be really deliberate in what we do. We recently passed the Measure HH. That it was a tax that's really going to help define, to stop displacement within the community. There's some money that's set aside for training program and schooling for the community members as well. So as a council, we have to sit down and think about, we've passed this ordinance and this money is going to come to the community. How are we going to break down the percentages, and how much money is going to go towards stopping displacement?
And I think that was a tax of $2 per square foot or something like that.
Yes.
On.
Yes, I believe that was the one for
large corporations.
Yes, yes. I think it's over 25,000 square feet. Then those individuals will be taxed, and you're taxed if you have a tenant or not. You're taxed on just the square footage of a building. But when that comes into the community, how are we going to allocate those funds so that the community benefits from those dollars?
Now, before there was a tax, what was it on IKEA or the Four Seasons?
The TOT.
Yes.
The TOT tax is still in place, and it's a tax,
Occupancy
transient
tax.
occupancy tax for the community members. And we utilize those dollars. I believe some money will go to the senior center, and I believe some may go to our police department. I'm not sure. And other money we set aside to help some of our nonprofits who are doing a lot of the work in the community.
And there was a Measure C. Has that money run out?
The Measure C has run out.
And that was an ordinance.
That was an ordinance for crime reduction. And it did a great job, but there was a sunset on it, and we didn't go back out to the community for additional funds. But that Measure C did a lot of great work to improve just the outcomes in our community. Again, helping with community policing, helping to fund the nonprofits that are doing a lot of the work that the city couldn't do. When we think about the improvements in the city, and when we talked about the 65% reduction in crime, and it's probably even greater now. The police didn't do it just by themselves.
Sure.
They did it with the help of nonprofits.
I mean, crime, murder went down almost to zero, and I think just recently there was the first murder of the year.
Yes, yes. So again, there are nonprofits that are on the ground that are working with children and the youth and making sure that individuals are educated and going to college. So there are a lot of nonprofits in the community that's doing the lion's share because the city just can't do it by themselves.
No, you mentioned RVs. Someone called to complain about an RV on their street.
Yes.
And the city just opened an RV park.
Yes. Yes.
So say something about that.
So there is land on Bay Road, and we know that the RV parking, RV livers, it's not just East Palo Alto. This is happening in the Bay
Menlo
Area.
Park, in Mountain View.
It is a symptom of the cost of living in our region. People can no longer afford to live in their homes, so they're reverting to an RV living situation. And in East Palo Alto, they were on Bay Road, but we know that Bay Road is going to be, it has been identified for a downtown area, and we want to do some work on Bay Road. And instead of being NIMBYs and say not in our backyard, this council had the courage to say that these are our residents and we want to help them out and figure out what to do. So we decided with staff to open up a safe RV parking spot. And the parking lot is located on Bay Road. We didn't do it by ourselves. We have Project We Hope, Pastor Paul Baines and Project We Hope are doing a lot of the work. So the RV parking lot opens from 7 in the evening, I believe, till 7 in the morning. RVs can park in this location. There's a security guard on site. I believe they bring food to them. Project We Hope has a Dignity on Wheels vehicle that they bring out, I think, 3 times a week to allow individuals to take a shower, wash their clothes, and use a regular restroom.
And I think there are also training programs that the residents can be involved in.
Yes, there is a wraparound service that Project We Hope has put together where individuals are being trained on janitorial services, security services, administrative services, so then they're able to find jobs.
So the program, that RV park, is from, I think you said 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. in the morning.
Yes.
So what do the RVs do? Go park on the streets?
So during the day, they're allowed to park on the street because most of them are going to work. But because this is public property, we have to be very careful of how we utilize the lot. And you don't want somebody to park there for longer and become a tenant, and then you can't get them off the lot. So there are rules that we have to follow with the RVs to make sure that, number one, we want to make sure that people are safe, that they're emptying their waste receptacles the right way. So I think we even provide that service as well. And in addition to some of the wraparound services that are being provided, there have been a few of the RV families that have found housing. So Pastor Baines and his crew with their wraparound services and the Samaritan House and some of their other partners are working to really change the outcomes and have individuals
So
find
I
home.
heard one caller to a radio show say, "Oh, these RV dwellers, they're just this is an opportunity for them to camp out
Not for everybody, so
for
we,
anybody."
no, so let's be really honest. And if you think about RV, there are some bad actors in the RVs as well. We identify that and we know that there are people who have decided they just rather live off the grid and they don't want to follow the rules and they want to do what they want to do, right? But there are some families who are living in RVs and they're going to work every day. They just can't afford to live in their city. And we don't want to punish those individuals who are just trying to make ends meet.
And so what do you say to a resident who calls and complains that an RV is parked on their street?
So we tell them about our parking program, and we do understand that if they have a sticker and they've registered with the Safe Parking Program and there's no space in that lot, they're allowed to park on the street. But like with every other vehicle, you get to stay there for 72 hours and you have to continue to move. So we work with the RVs to be good neighbors, and we would hope that RV dwellers are not using drugs and leaving drug paraphernalia, or they're not leaving trash around, that they're also being responsible for their living arrangements.
So you talked about the U.S. Conference of Mayors and the California League of Cities, where people like yourself, officials, can go and exchange ideas.
Sure.
Any ideas being exchanged in terms of the homeless? And
yes. So I am a part of, with the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, they've convened, and Assemblyman Mark Berman. We were in a meeting once and I remember mentioning Assemblyman Berman was looking for things that we can do regionally, and I said we should have a discussion about RV livers, because if East Palo Alto makes a decision on what we're going to do about RVs, it affects Palo Alto and the surrounding communities. If we say not in our neighborhood, that means RVs have to move somewhere else. So there is a group that's sitting at a table talking about a regional approach to what this RV living will look like. So Mountain View's at the table, Menlo Park is part of the conversation, Palo Alto is a part of the conversation, Sunnyvale. So there's some communities that are dealing with the same issue. And just last month we had this group to come and do a tour of our RV
when
park.
the park opened, I was
Yes.
going to mention that other city council members from various neighboring cities
Yes. So they're trying to,
and
Redwood City,
said, I think that East Palo Alto has taken the lead.
that's another area where we're leading. And those individuals were there to say, why should we recreate the wheel? Let's go see what East Palo Alto is doing and see how we can implement the same program in the community. So I believe Redwood City is seriously considering it. Palo Alto is trying to figure out what to do. Mountain View is the same thing. And I don't know what Menlo Park is doing, but Menlo Park is interested in as well.
Sure. Now, I started out talking about the fact that female mayors are commonplace. And I came across some more statistics that said, oh, in 2013, there was only one Black woman leading a major city, and now for the first time in the nation's history, women of color lead 10 of the nation's 100 largest cities. And we have a slide that, several slides that indicate what's going on in that respect. And we can see this in some of the major cities include Washington, D.C., Atlanta, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Charlotte, North Carolina, San Francisco, Chicago. What would you say concerning these new statistics?
You know, this has been something that's been deliberate. Like, there have been people that have been working to get women to the table, because we know that when women are in leadership, we think about the whole family. It's not just about one area. So I graduated from a program called Emerge. When I decided to run for office, I was told I wouldn't win, but I should go and take this training class. So it was really unique. I followed that, and as I was campaigning, I had enrolled, or at least looked into getting into the program. Well, I I won my election and was admitted into the program at the same time. So I was able to go through this democratic training program for women as an elected official. And that program that's run out of Oakland, and it's expanded across the country, is really focusing on encouraging women to run for office. We know that women have to be asked to run for office several times. We don't put ourselves out there as
like
much.
you.
Yes. Yes. So it's saying,
No, wait. Is that, are you all among the exception? You just now said women have to be asked several times.
Yes, yes. And the majority of the women who are probably in office, if you talk to them, they would probably say that the first time they didn't think that they would do it. We are saying that I need more education. If you ask a woman, I don't think I'm ready for that. I need to do this. I've got to do this thing. I have a family. So there are the things that we have to stop and contemplate.
What about the money? Just raising money.
Well, and you're taught that, what it looks like to, and how you can accomplish that when you're ready to run for office, especially through the Emerge program. So there's Emily's List, it's Close the Gap, there's Emerge program, there's Ignite for Young Women to encourage women to run for office. So these training organizations are helping women to identify, not only do you want to run for office, but how can you break that glass ceiling that is happening so often in organizations as well. So we become this sisterhood of individuals. So when you think about Malia Cohen, who's running the Board of Equalization right now, she's an Emerge sister. She's an Emerge alum. London Breed is an Emerge alum. Libby Schaff is an Emerge alum. And there are more women who have gone through the Emerge program that I'm very proud of. There were times when I would go places, we would wear this little E on our lapel that would let you know that there's another Emerge alum.
No, you were told you weren't going to win.
I sure was.
No, why? I mean, you're in a program that's training women for political office and still being told, well, you might not win.
But it was a man who told me. He said, oh, you can go ahead and run. Like, go ahead, it's a good experience for
Was
you.
he involved in the program?
He was involved in politics.
Oh.
And he said, you should go ahead and run. It'll be a good experience for you. You won't win, but you should do it. I encourage you.
Why was he so sure that you wouldn't win?
Well, he wasn't right, though.
Yes, no, he wasn't. However,
I think it's just the way that people think that you have to do things a certain way, like, and maybe just in his mind, he had just made the assumption that it wasn't going to work.
What about the pushback that you're getting? Because if women, and we have another slide that talks about the number of women who are running, you know, there's the idea if a woman is getting the position, then a man isn't. Have you run into pushback from male colleagues?
No, I think we're okay in that there's enough room for all of us when it comes to politics. And even though we have some women who are in these leadership roles, when I walk in a room, the average time when I'm with elected officials, it's still a male-dominated field.
Yes, we have some more statistics that we can see there, just in terms of if we scroll down maybe to the next slide, we can see how many are African American, how many from the Latino community, how many from the Asian Pacific community, Native American communities. Mm-hmm. Have you been seeing more women of color as you've gone off to other national and county, state organizations, political organizations?
Just as in the elected field, yes, there are more and more women who are running for office. Those who hold the leadership role in especially a strong mayor city, we're always happy to see when a woman makes it to that seat and is leading in the charge. But just recently, I attended the Congressional Black Caucus meetings, and I
was going to ask you about that too. Yes.
And I think they can do a better job of identifying the elected officials once you're in the room, but there wasn't really a way to say, here are the elected officials. I know that they had a separate reception for the African American mayors. Unfortunately, I didn't make that reception this year. But in the conference itself, there wasn't a way to identify I'm an elected official, so how do I get with other elected officials to talk about the things that are going on?
Sure, and we have one more slide, I think, that talks about, or at least shows what's going on the national level. And I'm just wondering, you mentioned the National Black Caucus, and the National Black Caucus. I hadn't thought to ask you about that because that's for Congress, those in Congress.
Yes, yes.
But you did mention that they have, they've acknowledged the mayors.
Yeah, so there's a reception that happens there, but as the conference in itself, and I'm having some of these conversations with those individuals who are in DC to say, hey, this is a broader opportunity to bring all elected officials to the table that can attend that meeting to have discussions about what's happening in our communities and how we can work together. And I think there is some interest in doing just that. Like, how do we have that discussion on a broader scale? It's always great to be in DC and see the power that's going on and be able to come in contact with our congressional leadership. But for those individuals who are in cities, we enjoy coming together.
Sure, we can lose that slide. I have heard it said, for example, on the state level, in terms of state assembly, state legislators, as soon as they get there, they're taught about, okay, you're running for office, how do you save your seat? Do you find that in the groups that you've been attending? Once you're in office, then the goal is how to stay in office.
I can't say we've had that discussion a lot. It was the idea of running for office, and I think when I think about being in office, how do I make sure I'm representing the majority of my city and doing the best job that I can, like not work in a silo, and it can't just be about me, but how do I think of others? And I think if you're approaching this career or this job of from a servant side, because that's what we're doing, we're taking care of the community, I think it's helpful.
And how do you think, and it's probably not a fair question, but the 5 city council members are working together. There had been some dissension among the ranks in years past. What about now?
We don't always agree on everything, but I think there's a way to disagree. And it's probably healthier to have people in your ranks that don't always agree with you. I tell people I learn better, I learn more with people who I don't that I don't necessarily agree with because they challenge my thought.
Do you think that's advice that can be given to the current presidential administration?
I don't think anything can help the current presidential administration, unfortunately. But it's having the ability to have a frank conversation and know that at some point somebody's going to win. But at the end of the day, we move forward and move on to the next item of the day.
Talking about at the end of the day, moving forward, is there any upcoming legislation that local residents can look forward to?
You know, off the top of my head, I know we're always working on a lot of different things. Probably our main focus right now is to ensure that we're managing the development, that we're improving communication within the city, that we're working on TDM models that are going to try to help us figure out the traffic. Things that are important are the Dumbarton Rail coming across the bridge that can take some of those cars off the roads that will help our communities. And how do we stop displacement?
Yes, that was going to be my last question. Gentrification. That's a real concern, isn't it?
It is.
And I was looking at some recent statistics, and I really couldn't figure out exactly what the ethnic makeup is now, because it seems to be changing considerably.
So when you think about our community, if you own a home, you're in a better position. those individuals who are renting, especially homes. East Palo Alto is a rent stabilization city, so for those multifamily homes, we can kind of control the rent there. But where we're losing the majority of our residents, it's in the single-family homes.
Where people are renting.
Where people are
that
renting.
they don't own.
That they don't own, and we don't control or have a say. We can't say how much someone can charge for the rent of their home. So people are losing their housing because some landowners or property owners know that they can get more money for their homes.
And it's not that houses, as in about 2008, were being lost into foreclosures.
Not anymore. So that has been corrected. You know, there are still some foreclosures that happen, but for the most part, we're not dealing with that right now.
In the 2 minutes that we have left, is there something you'd like to talk about that we haven't talked about? Any final words?
You know, I just thank you for your leadership. You know, you recently celebrated your media day. And when I think about the work that you're doing in our community, we appreciate you. You're making sure that the community is informed, and just to have a talk show that provides a venue for individuals to come and talk about what's going on in the community is very much needed. And I just want to say thank you for the work that you're doing to help the community of East Palo Alto.
Well, that's very much appreciated. I couldn't do anything without assistance of people like yourself who are willing to come and talk.
Yeah, well, thank you.
You'd be surprised at people who are invited.
And I know people get busy, but I appreciate it that you have the space for us.
So anything more that we should look for? Coming up, the water problem's been solved.
A portion of the water problem has been solved for East Palo Alto. You know, we're still working with American Water and some of the issues that individuals are having with their water being shut off and not understanding that company. American Water will be turned over to Veolia at some point, and we'll have another operator of the East Palo Alto water program. So that is something to look forward to. And as the mayor, we get 1 year to be the mayor. I will be moving back to a city council member in December, up for re-election next year. But
will you be running?
I will be running again in 2020. So gearing up for that. I can't believe I'm putting that out there that I will be running in 2020. But I will also be having the State of the Mayor's address. We're looking for a date. It will probably happen in November. We can talk about all the great things that have happened in our community.
Well, on that note, talking about all of the great things and the mayor's address and the election coming up in 2020, we have a lot to look forward to. And I'd like to thank you for being on the show, sharing your ideas and sharing some of your goals. And I'd like to thank the viewers for watching. Until next time.
Thank you.
Of course.